Suddenly, something awakened within me, and I began to growl and snarl at them, showing them I wasn't afraid. Hi everyone, my name is Hazel. I'm reaching out to share my story, which feels especially important right now. I want to start by apologizing for my appearance. I know I look a bit messy, and that's because I've been living in the woods for the past few months and haven't had the chance to take care of myself. Before I dive into that, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel. It all started about 6 months ago when I had my first seizure. A couple of days before that, I had some strange dreams, more like nightmares to be exact. When I came home, instead of my parents, I encountered wolves. Surprisingly, I wasn't afraid of them at all. In fact, I felt comfortable around them, especially before I started to get hairy myself. At that point, I woke up screaming. When I shared my dreams with my parents, I could see their expressions change. Despite this, they quickly blamed video games for my dreams, even though I didn't see any real connection. By the way, feel free to share in the comments what your weirdest dream was. The next night, I woke up from another nightmare. I had a fever and was drenched in cold sweat. I needed some fresh air, so I went to the window. That's the last thing I remember. When I woke up again, I found myself in the woods. I felt scared and couldn't figure out how I had ended up there. It was dark all around me, but fortunately, I'm a former Girl Scout and know how to start a fire using materials I could find. If you've ever made a fire, hit the like button. Rescuers found me a couple of hours later, and soon my parents arrived as well. It turned out I was 25 kilometers away from home. Mom and Dad were even more shocked than I was. They couldn't understand how a small, fragile girl could walk barefoot such a long distance without a single scratch. Curiously, I don't remember anything about it. A few days later, when I finally regained my senses, they took me to see a psychiatrist. Hazel, please say hello to Dr. Daniel. Oh, you have grown up so much. Where does he know me from? I wondered. He spoke to my parents as if he had known them for a long time. After he finished examining me, I stepped into the hallway while the doctor continued his conversation with my parents. I became bored and decided to eavesdrop on their discussion. I believe it is time for her to learn the truth. This may also assist in her treatment. Her case is quite unusual. It was the only thing I could hear, and my curiosity grew stronger. On our way back, I expected my parents to say something, but they remained silent. Unable to wait any longer, I asked with a serious expression if there was something they wanted to tell me. Mom and Dad pulled over, exchanged glances, took a deep breath, and began their story. When I was 6 months old, my parents decided to celebrate their anniversary with a picnic in the woods. Everything was going smoothly until they heard wolves howling and spotted a pack of them nearby. My parents became very scared. My dad grabbed a stick to try to protect us, while my mom hid me in a tent and helped my dad. The wolves didn't show any aggression. They were simply curious. They sensed that my family didn't pose a threat and eventually left. My parents couldn't believe how fortunate they were until they realized that I was missing. Neither my parents nor the rescue team could find me. Mom and Dad were extremely worried, but they tried to hold on to hope, even as it became increasingly difficult. 2 years later, just when they were starting to come to terms with their loss, they received a phone call from the police informing them that I had been found. A forester from a neighboring county discovered a wounded she-wolf alongside her cubs. He also found a human baby among them. This remarkable story even made the front page of the local newspaper. My parents were overjoyed, but they soon noticed that I was behaving quite strangely. I had a habit of gnawing on things at home and howling like a baby cub when I wanted something. I couldn't walk on 2 legs, but I could crawl very quickly. Concerned, my parents reached out to several psychiatrists who specialized in child development, but they didn't know how to help me. Finally, Dr. Daniel contacted my parents and offered his assistance, as he had experience working with children who had Mowgli syndrome. Because of his methods, I became an ordinary child by the age of 4. I didn't know how to react. For 2 years, I had grown up with wolves, and my parents never said a word about it. They explained that they had been keeping it a secret on Dr. Daniel's advice, as they believed that memories could bring back my wolf's habits. The seizure revealed that my wolf-like nature hadn't disappeared. It was just hidden in my memory, and now seemed to be striving to break free for some reason. I feel like I have a kind of split personality, but instead of a second human personality, it's animalistic. I know it sounds creepy, and I couldn't believe it myself. I've always considered myself an ordinary child. Dr. Daniel prescribed me different medication and scheduled weekly checkups. I didn't tell my boyfriend, Robert, about it because I was afraid he would break up with me when he found out I had grown up with wolves and that I was struggling with my mental health. Besides, my nightmares and memory loss didn't bother me anymore, and I thought I was completely back to normal. At least, I believed that until one day, while hanging out with Robert, I had a panic attack and my eyes suddenly turned black. The next thing I knew, I woke up not far from my home. I couldn't remember anything and was worried about what Robert would think of my strange behavior. When I came home, Robert was already there with his hand bandaged, accompanied by his father. They both looked at me in fear. It turned out that I had bitten Robert several times during a seizure. My parents tried to explain that it was due to a rare disease, but Robert's dad wouldn't listen at all. He threatened to call the police if I ever came near his son again. My parents worked hard to keep this conflict under control, but the worst part was that Robert started avoiding me. It was the last straw, and I fell into a state of depression. Dr. Daniel recommended that I stay at his private clinic. He was honest and explained that the treatment could take years because my case was so unusual. I was firmly opposed to this option since it felt like being in a real prison, where I would have to take strong medications and endure unpleasant procedures. My parents weren't ready for this either, so they decided to keep me at home for a while under their supervision. I couldn't go anywhere without an escort. When I had to stay home alone, they would put a collar on me and chain me up. Think about it for a moment. I understand that they worry about me, but this is too much. Things have been this way for a week, and I couldn't stand it anymore. One day, my mom's collar key fell out, and I managed to free myself while she wasn't looking. When she and Dad tried to put the collar back on me, I was so angry that I bit them and ran into the woods. It wasn't a seizure. I reacted instinctively while being fully conscious. I was determined not to go home because I didn't want to be treated like a dog on a leash. It wasn't my fault. I didn't deserve this treatment. However, I wasn't angry with my parents either. My first challenge in the woods was finding food. Fortunately, it was hiking season, and I managed to take food from the hikers. One day, though, I almost got shot. They must have thought I was some kind of animal. I slept by the fire, changing my location every night. One day, I heard strange noises, and initially thought the hikers had strayed too far. Then I noticed glowing eyes in the dark. It was a pack of wolves. I was scared. There were so many of them, surrounding me completely. As they approached, my life flashed before my eyes. Suddenly, something awakened within me, and I began to growl and snarl at them, showing them I wasn't afraid. The leader stared into my eyes for a moment, then sniffed me, and I could feel his breath. The rest of the experience became a blur, as if I were watching from the sidelines. I was running with the pack, feeling like I was truly a part of it. The wolves showed me their territory, and we howled at the moon all night long. I felt an overwhelming happiness, as if I was finally being myself. I woke up surrounded by the wolves, lying next to one another. It was the best morning of my life. They welcomed me into their family. I helped to heal their wounds and learned to understand them deeply. To my surprise, they turned out to be incredibly grateful and loyal. They shared their prey with me, which I roasted over the fire, warded off other predators, and kept me warm at night. One day, while exploring new territories, we encountered humans. One of them pointed a rifle at our leader, but I managed to shield him, preventing the man from firing. In that moment, it felt as though I had awakened, for Robert was standing in front of us with his father. I pleaded with him not to shoot and promised that we would leave them alone. His father lowered the gun, but I could see fear and disgust in their eyes, as if they had encountered some kind of monster. The wolves and I quickly walked away from that place. After that, I realized that I had truly transformed into a monster. The essence of the wolf was consuming me more and more. I had completely forgotten that I was a human, not a wolf. While I have no issues with wolves, I don't belong here. I need to return to society, but if I do, they will almost certainly send me to an asylum for a long time. I'm completely confused about what to do. Guys, please let me know in the comments what you would do if you were in my situation. If this video receives 100 likes, I'll share what happens next. Till then, take care!